I've lived in Florida since I was 11 years old. I've lived in Northeast Florida for 20-something years. I feel that this is my home, and I feel that I know this region very well, and I feel that I have a connection to the people who live here. It felt quite comfortable and quite natural to set the story here in Northeast Florida. Heart of Palm is about a family in a town that looks very much like the little town of Palm Valley just north of St. Augustine. And this family is faced with some tough decisions because a developer comes to town, sees this old, very kind of humble town, realizes that this town is right on the Intracoastal Waterway, just 7 miles from the Atlantic Ocean, realizes that this place is a diamond in the rough and wants to develop it. But there's this old family, the Bravos, who have lived there for many generations, and all of their friends and neighbors who are sort of entrenched in a different way of living. And so this family then has to make a decision. They're offered a lot of money to cash out, sell their property. What do they do? Do they stay or do they go? That's the central conflict in the book, is that family and their decision. And there are several key scenes that take place at recognizable landmarks in St. Augustine. There's a scene at Ripley's, there's a scene at the Dairy Queen, there's a scene at the Alligator Farm, and many of the characters have ties to St. Augustine. So St. Augustine is the most real place in the novel because the novel is based in a fictional town called Utina. I moved to St. Augustine with my husband and my kids when my husband started working here at Flagler College. Coincidentally, that time in my life, I was in transition in other ways. My family and I were kind of in a new place. I had resigned a full-time position as a copywriter at an ad agency in Jacksonville, and I went out on my own as a freelance writer. I approached a creative writing professor here at Flagler College, Dr. Darian Andrew, and I asked her if I could sit in on her class. I was already a postgraduate student, but I asked her, could I really want to learn how to write fiction. And she very graciously agreed.
She was a wonderful addition to the course. Such a careful reader of everyone's manuscripts in the class. She put a lot of comments throughout within the margins and a beautiful recommendation to the writer at the end. That kind of richness added so much to the class experience, and the students really resonated with her and appreciated her effort. And what invariably happened was she raised the bar. I mean, if she was going to do that for their manuscripts, second time around, third time around, they were doing that for her and for each other, which I was so grateful. It was like, this is how writers help each other.
That was when I started to get serious, because that was when I realized there's a craft, there's a technique, and it can be learned, and it can be practiced, and it can be done. I had a short story that was published in a literary magazine called Natural Bridge. An agent actually spotted the story in that magazine and approached me and asked if I had a novel. And at the time I had a novel in the works, and I told him what my timeline was to get the novel completed, and we worked together over a period of months, and they accepted my work for representation. Then it went through another year's worth of editing before they took it out to the marketplace and ultimately sold it to Grove Press. You hear from many, many writers that the most important part of the writing process is the revision and the rewriting, and I learned how true that is, because when I look at where that manuscript was and then I look at where it is today, it's night and day, the things that have changed and the scenes that have developed, because I had a good agent and a good editor pushing me, saying, I don't see this character yet, and then ultimately me sitting down and putting just as much, if not more, work in the revision as I did in the initial draft. St. Augustine is such a unique place because it's the oldest city, and yet at the same time, the city resides in a county that's among the fastest growing counties in the United States. So we have a lot of influx of new energy. We have a college here, we have a lot of young people in town, and at the same time we have these very, very old traditions. We have families who have lived here for many, many generations. So I find that fascinating. It's a beautiful place to live. It's an interesting place to live. the history, the landscapes here. I mean, I can't think of a better place to live, especially as a writer. There's so much to think about and so much to witness here.